The language doesn't describe the world in which we live. We're describing a world that existed in a human form with the best of intentions, where morality is real. The world we live in has nothing to do with morality. When the Pope appears, or the head of state, and they call for world peace and unity, these are hollow words. They don't mean anything to me. They have no authenticity. Nations don't have friends, they have interests. We will do anything to achieve our interests, and that means eradicate other people's ways of life, take away their language, all for the benefit of them. It's not human to be able to change the world. That's a fascist idea. It's an idea that comes from evangelical and technological thinking, to think that all people can live the same way. Everything now is situated in technology. In that sense, from that point of view, technology is the new host of life. Technology is the environment of life. It's something that we've created, but like Frankenstein, it has a life of its own. For me, technology is like an ontological earthquake. We live in two worlds, the world of the rooted future, which is the world of technology, or the world of the uncreated future, which is the world of art. That's the rooted future is the world where I am completely pessimistic. The uncreated world is the world of hope, because that's the world that comes out of the fecundity of our imagination. To try to make this world better is, I think, hopeless. One has to have the courage to be hopeless about this world in order to create a more livable world for oneself. I try to take 1,000 pictures and offer you the power of one word so that you can begin to rename the world in which you live. I learned as a monk that if you want to see your ordinary world in an extraordinary way, you had to stare at it to the point where it started to look strange. I try through the camera to look at the world that is assumptive, that's all around us, that we see every day but never see because it's so present. I try to stare at it, make that background the foreground or the subject, so that confronting that, it starts to look strange. Then that image starts to speak to us. My films aren't about meaning. If you want to have meaning, then you have advertisement and you have propaganda. If you saw a sign for Coca-Cola, or Coca-Cola, excuse me, the meaning would be unmistakable. If you saw a socialist realism film, the meaning is propagandistic and unmistakable. Whereas if you were in an art gallery and saw a painting and there were 100 people in the room, hopefully there could be 100 different points of view about it. This is the power of art. It leaves you free to have your own point of view. Paulo Freire, the great Brazilian activist of the 60s, who was considered public enemy #1 for the Brazilian junta, was that not because he commanded an army or because he was a revolutionary leader, but because he taught people literacy. And by that, I don't mean to read and write. He taught people how to reclaim their language. He taught people how to rename their world. We are free because we can say we are free. That's what makes us free. Our language creates the world that we live in. But if our language is official, if our language is assumptive, if our language is business, then our language doesn't create the world, it continues the madness of what this world is. There's a mad rush to consume drugs, and I think that's in an inverse relationship to how much our words have lost their meaning. Drugs give us access to things that our language no longer explains. Our societies of, quote, enlightenment and development predate on the societies of diversity and simplicity in the South. We demand if they develop with aid, and the way that we say they develop, through the World Bank, through plans that we offer them that they must do in order to join the global world. To do that, they will lose their soul. This is how we live. Our life is predicated on the destruction of other people's ways of living. You may think that's severe, but when we see the disappearance of language, the homogenization of culture, the magnets of big cities bringing people in from all over so that they can be more developed, so that they can have a higher standard of living. What is higher? That's a value judgment. Higher means having a more affluent life. Those of us that live in the North that have an affluent life find ourselves isolated in this comfort and find ourselves possessed by the very things that we seek. For many people now who graduate from university, that certificate becomes their death certificate because they no longer can afford to question the world they live in.